So this month I decided to review a book that we read for the Teen Summer Book Club, which was Almost American Girl by Robin Ha. It's illustrated memoir, so it's just a graphic novel, but it's a memoir about her life, particularly starting with the summer before ninth grade, where her mom takes her on a trip to America, which she thinks is a vacation. And it turns out that her mom's decided to marry a Korean immigrant who's in America, and they're never going back to Korea. It's a permanent move. I really like this book. Like I said, it's a memoir, so you're just reading about her life and her experiences when she moved to America. And it reminded me a lot of just people I met in high school too. Like in the high school I went to, there were multiple times where I met people who had moved from another country, and then like in the case of this character, she came in knowing no English, so sometimes people didn't know English, sometimes people moved from English speaking countries, or sometimes they did know English when they came in, but it was, you know, you're moving to a brand new country, you don't know anybody, you're going to a whole new school system. It's difficult. So I really liked reading her story. Even though it's not something I can directly relate to, it's something that I can relate to people that I knew. So I thought that was interesting. And in addition to like the school stuff, it's also covering stuff with her family and her stepfamily and just herself, like her sense of worth and how she's feeling going through the experience. So I thought it was very interesting and a good read. Like, even, I mean, it would be good even if it was just like a regular fictional story. You can, you know, if it wasn't an actual memoir, if it was just a story that was, you know, just a regular graphic novel, it will also work on that way too. So I think it was fun. I liked it a lot. I honestly think anybody could read it. Probably, you know, any age, tweening up can read it, and I think they would enjoy it. And like, especially if you don't know anything about, say, the immigrant experience for like teens, then this will be a good book to read. If you want to know more about it, and you know, I think it would encourage developing a little bit more empathy for people who are going through that. So that's the general review. If you're the type to like, kind of like a outcast in high school story, even if, you know, you're not the type to read memoirs, but you like to read fiction about outcasts in high school, this will be a good one. If you want to read a story about someone who immigrated, this will be a good one. And yeah, so, or any just one you just like, I want to read a good just solo graphic novel, I would recommend this. Alright, so let's pop into the spoiler review. So for the spoiler review, we're just kind of go chapter by chapter, I think. So the first chapter is called The End of the World as I Know It, which pretty much just shows how she is. Like, she had finished middle school, and she's like, I think like a week from going into high school. She talks about, like, you know, she's a big comics reader, so she's really into reading comics. Her mom knows some English, but she doesn't know any English. Like, she talks about, which I empathize with, she talked about how, like, in middle school, all of a sudden she, like, grew, and it was kind of like the giant girl for a little bit, which I experienced that. And her mom had been on vacation before. She talked about they traveled to lots of different places, Guam, Saipan, Hawaii, Thailand, Malaysia. So then, like, every year they go on a vacation outside of Korea. So this year the mom's like, we're gonna go to Alabama, and she's like, I don't know why, but okay, sure, why not? So they go to Alabama, and when they get there, there's a family there, the Kim family, which they do a nice thinking of the family there. And she's all like, okay, like, what are we meeting up with this family for? But okay, what? Sure. And they go, and they're having, she's kind of chilling with the other kids in the family and stuff like that. Visiting different spots, missing her friends back at home, and eventually her mom tells her, like, that they're not going back. Like, she's marrying Mr. Kim, who was in here as like one of the kids' uncle. Marry Mr. Kim. They're staying. But even in this first part, she's like, well, the kids speak Korean, but they don't really try to speak Korean with her so much. It's like, and the only one she really kind of hangs out with is the dog, comfortably, because they kind of speak Korean English. Sometimes they throw a lot of English and throw Korean words in, and she gets confused because she doesn't speak English. And she's just a lot of bored because a lot of stuff's going over her head. But then her mom's like, so we're staying here looking for an apartment. We're gonna get married. And you're like, and she didn't tell her anything that they're not going back. That wasn't even a possibility. Literally, she just sprung this on her. They're like, we're going on vacation, and then she sprung this on her. We're never going back. She didn't get to say. And this is I forgot to say, this is set in the 90s, so there's no internet really. There's no social media and stuff. Back then, you couldn't be like, and okay, I'll go on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. I'll text my friends, so they'll know what's up. No. First, she knows she's just never going to see any of those people again. So it's wow. And I can't help but think, I guess it's good that in the end, even though she'll talk about a lot of the stuff she went through is dealing with just being in high school as an immigrant. But it's good that at the end of the day, stuff worked out for her, because I could see that being something that could totally just cause a rift in a parent-child relationship, to do something like that to somebody when they're 14 and just bring that on them, especially you're marrying somebody, you got some new step siblings, you got a new stepdad, you're in a country you don't speak the language, you didn't get to say goodbye to anybody because you had no idea if her life would have went, if she did, I guess if she did adapt, or if she didn't turn out okay, I guess in the end, then she gets mad at her mom, but I could see that being something that would be a permanent, she got older and she never forgives her or something. So chapter 2 is called My Only Sunshine. So here she just talks about her relationship with her mom when she's growing up. It's pretty much it's only been the two of them. So I think one of the reasons that eventually she kind of is not as mad as her mom as she is initially, is because she says it later. She's she's only had her mom. Her mom was a single parent. It was only her and her mom. That was it. So she had nobody else that she could, is pretty much, if she was super mad at her mom, then she would have nobody. So it's it's just been her and her mom forever. So and her mom's had boyfriends and stuff like that. Her dad was there, but she's she barely remembers him. Not really. He kind of left when she was small, very small, so she doesn't really remember anything about him. It's just been the two of them, so in each other's lives, right? And her mom's always taking care of him. that's most of what chapter 2 kind of talks about. Like her mom, her mom does love her and take care of her and works really, really hard because she's a single parent and she works in the hair salon and, and she doesn't have anybody else she could even go to, really. Yeah. Anything else in there? And she said, and she has like a dream that she like runs off and goes to Seoul, but it's like, but when she gets there, who would she even go to? She doesn't have anybody else. So chapter 3 is My Name is Robin. So she picks, Robin is like her American name that she picks. Like I said, I had a lot of kids who immigrated when I was in high school. I knew a lot of kids who immigrated, and a lot of times people picked like American names, or even if they were American and they had like a name, like ethnic name, a name from their ethnicity, from their culture, and a lot of times they would pick like an American name, because a lot of times the kids, they either said their name wrong or the teacher said their name wrong, and it was like a constant thing, so they would pick an American name to go by. So she ends up picking Robin, but you find out too with which she has problems saying, even pronouncing, because there's like no R in Korean. So, but she still goes with Robin anyway. But she talks about how she, like, kind of opposite than from what I saw a lot of people experience, where they just, they're like, I have this name and then the other name. Like, they like both her names. She didn't like her birth name, really, even. Her birth name is Chuna. I guess that's like, she said it's like a super old-fashioned name. It's like naming your kid Agnes or something. So she didn't really even like her Korean name, so she thought this was like, for her, it was a good opportunity to like pick a cool new name. Like, so her and the step cousins and everything, they made like a list of cool names that they thought that she might like, and she went with Robin. Yep. So, and then they talk about her first day of school when she goes in to the first day of high school, and how it's kind of like, she has, I like the way they showed it in terms of like the, hopefully you guys can see down here, like they showed like scribbles, like when she can't understand somebody when they speak to her, like they don't. So it's more like you're experiencing from her perspective. So it's like she can understand like the occasional word or two or phrase, but it's like she doesn't understand most of it. Like even from her stepsister, she doesn't understand. She said, because she speaks Korean with American accent, so sometimes some of that's hard. And then she'll speak mostly English, or even she's speaking Korean, she'll throw an English word, and then teachers don't speak English, so it's really hard for her and intimidating going in. And on that first day, when she doesn't understand anything. So the next chapter is called How to Deal with Turds, because there's some jerk faces, of course, at school, right? It shows her general experience in class, since she can't follow along with, like, the teachers are talking things, but she can't follow along because she doesn't speak English. So she spends a lot of time, like drawing from her favorite comics while she's in class, and in most of the classes. Does they have the one teacher yet? Not yet. Oh yeah, they show all of her it's like second, third, fourth. She's trying to pay attention, but it's like nothing. So she feels just so bored because she can't understand anything. And then she runs into some jerk faces, of course, who are doing, slanted eye jokes and stuff. And then she said because her lack of English, she doesn't even realize like that they're saying mean things to her. And so she thinks they're trying to talk to her, but really they're just trying to say bad things. And then eventually, she realizes they're being jerks and making fun. which sucks. I mean, you're already like in a situation, and it feels like for the guys, it just feels like they're just picking on somebody who's vulnerable. You know, she's just an easy target. That's it. So they're just doing racist jokes and having fun at her expense just because she's an easy target. And she goes back to, she explains back in her time in Korea, like, instead of getting made fun of for being, you know, being an immigrant, not speaking English, being Asian, she got made fun of by other kids for not having a dad, for having a single parent. Because, and they talk about this in a later chapter too, but apparently in the 90s, being a single parent in Korea was a big no-no. Like, no. So a lot of the kids make fun of her for, you know, not having a dad. And she said her mom, like, you know, tried to protect her as much as possible. And, you know, and her mom worked real hard. And she had her hair salon and, you know, got them better housing and stuff like that. So, like, she really idolized her mom a lot. Even though, you know, she was a single mom and had a lot of people look down on both of them for that. So the next section is family cuts deeper than strangers. So it gives you the two sides. So she does have one really nice teacher. Oh wait, you can see that right there. She does have one really nice teacher, her English teacher. So she realized her English teacher, instead of having her do all the regular assignments of the class, because she realized that, you know, her English is limited, she has her do like a separate assignment, which is journaling. So she has her write a journal and turn it into the teacher, and the teacher like reads it. So that helps her with her English a lot, because one, she has you know, she can take her time and look up words that she wants to try to use and put them in there. Also, she has a connection with somebody, like, because the English teacher is reading her stuff and writing back to her and stuff, and giving her like you know, her kids books to read and stuff like that, so she can work on her English. And then, so when she's having that positive experience, on the other side of it, with her one of her step siblings, who also goes to the high school with her, not right. So she's getting acceptance from the teacher, and she's getting rejected from the step sibling. So she explains that she feels very, you know, next to her step sibling. She's like, you know, like the girly girl type, and Robin is not the girly girl type, so they don't really have, like, she feels kind of like self-conscious about that. But also just the step sibling, she doesn't want to hang out with her. She doesn't help her when it comes to stuff in class. You know what I mean? She just wants to ignore her, pretty much. Like, she doesn't help her at all. Mm-hmm. So she has, like, the step sibling, on the other hand, who, like, just kind of ignores her. She doesn't really want to help her at school. She doesn't want to hang out with her. She just completely avoids her. So, and the thing is, it's like they explain that the step sibling and stepdad have only been in America like a year longer than they have. So, like, a year ago, like, step sibling was, you know, first time person to America too. You would think she would have, like, more sympathy, but for whatever reason, and I don't know if it's because, like, she doesn't, you know, she's not happy about the situation with the girl coming into their life, with Robin coming into her life, or what, but just the whole family kind of, you know, the other kids aren't super receptive to her, which sucks. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, and she's like specifically said, she's like, she doesn't want to help her. She doesn't want to, I'm sorry, it's the step cousin. It's not even the sibling, which you would think, she would have more problems, but she's younger. She doesn't, but it's the step cousin. She just does not. And then she said it reminds her when she was younger, there was her teacher in school was very mean to her, right? She had a teacher who was super, super mean to her. And they do actually talk about later on in another chapter, like, why that was. And it turned out it's because the teacher, there's kind of, I guess, then, I don't know if it's still now, there was kind of like an unwritten rule that the parents would, like, not do favors, but, like, bring presents and stuff like that for the teacher. And since the mom, like, did want to do that, then the teacher treated her like crap. But she didn't realize that that was the reason she thought she was doing something wrong. She wasn't doing anything wrong. The teacher was just, like, mean. And, yeah, taking it out on her. Next chapter, A Ghost of Me. So, it's pretty much, this part talks about a lot of it and her just being kind of down because she's got to the part where she doesn't have any friends or anything like that. At this point, she's kind of like hoping like maybe somebody would talk to her and approach her and be friends with her, but it's like, nope, no friend right now. But then she gets a surprise letter, boom, from one of her friends in Korea who apparently, since they didn't see her at school, went and talked to a neighbor and found out that they moved and found out what her new address is. So they sent her a letter, which is pretty cool, right? And so it's kind of like, her friends were still thinking about her, and they wrote to her and she would write to them, and it was pretty cute actually. So the cage was talking a little bit about her mom's expectations on her. Like, her mom made it, they just talk about her mom made her play the piano all the time. And she had like super horrible stage fright. She put all these expectations on her about it, even though she was never interested in it. It's always the mom, right? And then she kind of just has like, I think all the pressure of everything that's going on with her, like blows up, and she just has a blowout with her mom. It's like, she's like, I hate you, why'd you break me here, kind of thing. And they do it as like, like, you can see the moment when her heart exploded, kind of thing, because her mom's really hurt about it. And the next chapter in the Leap of Faith, she talks about her, I imagine she probably later on asked her mom, like, what was she thinking? So this chapter is like about her mom and kind of like why her mom decided to go. So it talks about a lot about how hard it was for her mom as a single parent in Korea, because people look down, like I said, people look down on that very badly. And then how hard she worked, and then even though she worked hard and everything, people still looked down on her. How she didn't have luck in her relationships. And then how she No, she loved her daughter a lot, and eventually she made that decision that she was going to move to America, right? So it focuses on her mom, so you can have like I said, because in the beginning you're like, how can this woman do this to her daughter? And so that part's focused a little bit on, like, you know, she is a good mother, and it was hard for her in Korea, and she thought there would be more opportunity for her in America because she wouldn't have so much. She said, like, in America, people seem to free to follow their dreams. So she had this idea that in America, she would be able to, like, do more without so much societal judgment holding her down. So it'll be more opportunities for them there. So the next part, comics to the rescue. So she's a big comics fan. So this is pretty much about how she, I wouldn't want to say gets the social life, but get friends, meet people who share interests with her, that kind of thing. So what happens is, I guess after the big blowout, her mom really realizes how miserable she is. So she does a little bit of investigating, finds a comic store like the next town over, and she's just like, get up, let's go, I'm taking you somewhere. And she's like, where? And they go over to this place, and it's like, you know, a comic store. They have manga that she's been reading and some comics and stuff. In addition to that, they also have a comics like class where there's other kids who are interested in manga and stuff like that. So it's like, yay. She did, well, they do have a thing, it's like 90s were like the beginning of manga boom in America, which I remember. I was a kid in the 90s. I remember reading manga at the comic store. Back then it was like Rama Half, Sailor Moon, for me. But she meets some of the other kids, and she can't quite speak to them yet because she doesn't know, English or anything, and she's like really impressed by their drawings. She's like, oh my god, these kids draw like way better than me and stuff. But she makes like a friend, an actual like legit friend, right? In the comics club, another girl named Jessica, who also, she's like, who they read the same kind of type of comics, like Japanese and Korean comics. So this is the first thing she's really kind of like excited about in America. And her and Jessica work together, and like I said, become actual friends. They hang out, they meet up, and then she meets the other kids from the club, and for once she's having like a positive experience since all the time she's been in America. And then there's time to say goodbye. Unfortunately, her mom is not having a positive experience so far being married to the stepdad. So you find out the stepdad's kind of he's a big dreamer, but not a practical person. The stepfamily has a lot of ideas about how she's supposed to act as a wife, you know what I mean? As the wife, you're supposed to support whatever your husband does, kind of thing. And she's like, no. Because the stepdad decided, their business and where they are is not working too bad. He's like, but we can go to LA and we can, make a real business there and da. And she's like, I don't know about moving my kid to LA, and like, is this business plan gonna work, and all this other stuff like that. So she goes down there to visit them and decides, no, this, he's not a practical person, and this step family's putting way too much pressure on her to just go along with what he wants, and she's done. She's like, I'm done with this family, I'm done with Mr. Kim. And so then they up and move, which she's like, what? So they have the end of the school year. She signs everybody signs their yearbook and stuff like that. And then they leave. So her mom decides, it's in the purge. So her mom decides they're going to go. So They moved to, where did they move to? I'm trying to remember. They moved to, and they don't really tell the family so much, because she's afraid the mom, she's afraid they'll try to like pressure her to stay. So they just up and you haul it out of there. You haul it out of there. And tells them later. I forget where they end up. Oh, Virginia. Boom. Which is the next chapter tells you. Oh, oops, back. Oh no, I forgot to do it. Okay, sorry. Chapter 12. Sweet Home, Virginia. So they end up moving from Alabama to Virginia. But she actually likes it there a lot because it's a bigger area. It's an area that has like a Koreatown. It's the high school. It's in, it's a bigger city area. Like I think in the Arlington area, which is kind of near-ish, DC-ish. So there's like a lot more diversity at her school. Like a lot of other kids from other places. She gets to meet some other Korean immigrants. A lot of kids from a lot of, other immigrants from a lot of other different countries in her ESL class. So it actually, she ends up having a much better time like once she moves to the bigger place. She makes more friends and stuff like that. And the last bit is Motherland versus Homeland, which is the epilogue. Which, hold on, before I talk about that, I guess, like, some people move to more like rural areas where there's less diversity, and it seemed like it was harder for her to live in a place like that than to live in a place where there was more like diversity, like a bigger population with more diversity, because at least, like you said, there was other people who were in the same situation she was, like also immigrants from other countries, other Korean speakers. So it made the transition for her easier, even though eventually when she was in the smaller town, she did eventually, make friends and stuff like that. It seemed like it was harder for her because she had less people she could connect with. Okay, Motherland versus Homeland. So this is a time jump. It jumps to 2012 when she's in college and she decides, it's her like first time going back and visiting Korea. And she realized that when she's there, like, she met up with some of her old friends and stuff, and she just realizes how, in some ways it's like, hey, still Korean, and then in other ways it's like really not Korean anymore. She specifically talks about some of the like social things, like that is like usual for, like, she goes out with friends and it's like usual for the girls to like serve the guys and stuff like that. So she's like, wait, what? And then like that she's gonna wait till later to get married and stuff like that, like some of the societal things around women that she notices for her. It's different because she grew up in America now, and then versus if she had been in Korea, like it would have been different for her. So it's kind of like a mix of, she sees how she's different than she would have been if she stayed in Korea, or different than like current Korean girls. And then in some ways, there's a lot of stuff that she misses. That was, she still connects to on a Korean way. So she said she wasn't, she didn't 100% fit in Korea or America, but she's kind of somewhere in between, and then that's okay with her. She's Korean American, and she's, at peace and happy with it. So that was my spoiler talk on Almost American Girl. Yeah, like I said, it reminded me of a lot of people that I went to high school with who weren't necessarily Korean, although I did know some people who were Korean, but just from a lot of different places. And I can see that people have a similar experience where they come in, it's like a brand new country, and they don't speak the language, and it's hard for them to make friends, And yeah, so it gives you a lot of like insight to how people feel about that, and just it relaxes a lot for me anyway. All right, so that is my spoiler review. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you pick it up and read it if you read it first and then watch this after. And then if you like it, take a peek at the read likes at the end, and you can see if there's any in there you'll like. See ya.